Are all organized religions cults? This week, I polled audiences on a live stream asking them this exact question. The answers started out as, no, of course not, followed by, well, not my organized religion. However, as time and reasoning and arguments proving that organized religions are in fact cults started to roll in, the responses quickly pivoted to, so what if it's a cult? What's so bad about being in a cult? I laughed and then grew gravely concerned. But that's beside the point. Do you agree? Are all religions cults? Is your religion a cult? And if so, is there nothing wrong with being in a cult? Let us know your thoughts by calling in, because the show is about to begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talk Heathen. Today is March 29th, 2026. I am your host, ObjectivelyDan, and joining me today is the wonderful Sidney Davis Jr.
Hello.
Sidney, what is happening? How are you doing?
I am doing all right. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. Folks, if this is your first time watching, Talk Heathen is a live call-in show that happens every single Sunday, and we want to get your calls in now. You should do that at 512-991-9242, or you can call through your computer at tiny.cc/call-th. And we are streaming today, so a big shout out to our viewers on TikTok and YouTube mobile. If you are watching us on TikTok tonight and you would like to call us, you can request to join, and we'll bring you up on the stage as well. Please make sure that you are over 18 years of age before doing so. And I, of course, had to remind folks that Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And folks, I have a special guest today. Special guest is also joining us. I got a new cat, and he's here. He's got a cone on right now because he just got neutered. His name is Tangerino, and I will die for him. So if for every super chat I get, I'll try to put him back on screen so that you can enjoy his great presence, his great screen presence. But right now he's chilling with me. So
are you telling us that Tangerino is the super chat super cat?
The super chat super cat is such amazing branding, and I can't believe that you just came up with that. But yes, Sidney, that is the case. We are in fact going with that. So please give me super chats so that you can see the super chat super cat today. And
orange hearts are already rolling in. I love it.
Yes, we love to see it too as well. Folks, this show doesn't just happen because me and Sidney are jabbering for an hour and a half. It also happens because we have an amazing, awesome crew that help makes the show happen. So real quick, we want to give a thank you to the video, the audio people, the moderators, the note takers, and the call screeners. Thank you to everybody that helps make this show happen. And there's just some of the folks that help make this show happen every single week. Thank you, guys. If you'd like to be one of the crew members or be a guest on one of our shows, or even maybe become a host, we're always looking for more people interested. So please email volunteer@atheist-community.org if you want to get involved with that. And folks, we are waiting for the calls to roll in because this is what it is. It is a live call-in show. So Sadie, you've got a premise. You start with a strong premise, I would say, a strong opinion this week. So what's the impetus for this? What's going on here?
For just like for what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying all religions are cults, right? That's a strong premise. That's a strong like. So what's your take on this?
So I've been interested in hearing people's thoughts on why all religions are cults. I fervently believe that all religions are cults, and so far, all of the evidence suggests that all religions are cults. And my takeaway this week from the audience who does not share the same ideology as me, I'm not talking about in the void where I agree with everybody who agrees with me, is first that organized religion all organized religions are not cults. But then when you bring up that there's consequences for leaving, that there's consequences for not following the rules, that there's a lot of shame involved in things like your sexual history or your emotional, you get the whole don't go to a therapist, pray more. You shouldn't go to seek actual counseling unless it's counseling within your church. That way it all stays within the church. If you're having marital problems, it's because you didn't pray enough. All the different things that you see in cults, both non-religious and religious cults. Then the question became, well, what's wrong with cults? And I got to tell you, that's the first time for me. I've never posted content accusing all religions of being cults and having people involved in those religions say, well, you know what? After listening to what you have to say, what's so bad about being in a cult? And so this week, my objective is trying to figure out what is, in fact, so bad about being in a cult, because here I am, misconstruing it as a negative thing when I need to be enlightened on why being in a cult is actually a positive thing.
Look, I have long been a proponent of the idea that, hey, maybe cults aren't all that bad because, you get to live in community with other people. You have a sense of purpose. There's a lot of structure.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. I mean, I'm just saying, maybe we should all just join a cult, and maybe they could be like nice cults. Maybe we can just make positive cult making, I think, should be a new thing. People are always complaining about, hey, we don't have third spaces. Your third space should be your cult compound by which
should, actually.
You know what?
You're right.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to join a cult after this, to be honest. I think.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Well, atheists, we get accused of having a religion and being in a cult as well.
That's true. So. That's true. And I was actually going to talk about that for a second. People might be watching this going, well, yeah, I'm in a cult maybe, but you're in a cult too. I don't believe there's any negative impact for me no longer identifying as an atheist. I mean, do we have an atheist hell? Did I miss that?
I think atheist hell is the life that we have.
Planet Earth, ladies and gentlemen, planet Earth.
Yeah, I think that's our punishment.
You know what? I think you're right. Actually, you know what? This might be hell. Like, that's something to explore as well. What if we're already here because we don't believe in God?
I don't know. At least I got the internet. It's kind of cool.
That is true. The Wi-Fi is pretty good here.
You can look at Wikipedia. There's probably Neopets if you're into that. I don't know. There's benefits. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. But, this idea is interesting to me because on the one hand, I think pretty much every religion starts as a cult. It's not too controversial to say that Christianity started as a cult. It's literally a guy and his 12 followers going around in the desert saying he's the son of God. If you saw that today, you would say, oh, that's a cult, straight up. You would just say that. It just happens to be a very popular one. And so it kind of crosses that threshold of, oh, well, there's a lot of people that believe in this. So it kind of stops being a cult. So, I don't think that's controversial. Is every religion a cult? I don't know, because then you get into some weird territory of okay, well, this religion is more just like a philosophical idea. And we don't really it's very loose. Are the folks that are, part of the secular humanist organizations, are they a cult? Are the folks at the Unitarian Universalist Church, are they a cult? Because they meet every Sunday. I don't know. I maybe, but it gets just kind of into some weird territory. It doesn't help that cult is kind of very pejorative in some sense and not always well defined. I know there's scholars that have attempted to put out definitions, but there's no universally accepted definition. So I also think there are groups that can and cannot be cults. Depending on the environment. So for example, I've gone to gyms that I slowly got the impression were a cult, and I left and went to another gym. Does that make all gyms cults? No. And it had nothing to do with religion. It had nothing to do with God. It had everything to do with peer pressure, the need to constantly make you prove your loyalty and your preference for that particular gym. A lot of times CrossFit is used as an example, which ironically started as a Christian organization. But you can have cults. You can have Girl Scout sects that are cults. That doesn't mean all Girl Scouts are cults. But when it comes to religion specifically, I have yet to find an organized Abrahamic religion that is not a cult. That does not fit my personal definition. And by my definition, I mean that the research shows is a cult. What does that mean? That means
charismatic leadership. That means dissuading you from seeking answers to questions outside of the organization, the dissuading of visiting other churches and other religions, or looking outside of the specific denomination that you're in. A lot of times, especially in Christianity, we see the demonization of other denominations. Don't get a Baptist started on how the Methodists aren't real Christians. Don't get them, don't get the Pentecostals started on how Baptists aren't real Christians. It wasn't until I started studying cults that I learned I apparently didn't grow up Christian because I grew up Baptist. So there's a lot of discourse to be had there, but I was just shocked by the number of people who first started out saying they weren't involved in a cult, and then the more they started watching the conversation and engaging and listening to the answers, then they started saying, okay, yeah, maybe I'm in a cult. What's so bad about that? And that's what I want to know.
Yeah, I could see, because again, we kind of made this point already, but I could see the reverse of that as an atheist being like, okay, what if atheism is a religion? Like, so what? Like, but cult is a bit more like, again, there's just more of a pejorative there. So it's like, I don't know if I wanted to like actually defend the idea that I'm in a cult. But yeah, on some level, all of these definitions and ideas are a bit, I don't want to say vague, but they're more like there's an opportunity for ambiguity in how we use these words. So I don't usually say the whole, all religions are cults sort of thing. I usually don't go that far. What I will say is like, your religion is more cult-like than you think. And
yes, I can see that.
There is a world in which you could describe it as a cult, right? Well, I don't think it doesn't fall under every way the word cult is used, but it does fall under some. So, it's something to think about. For sure.
Well, and I don't think we're in a cult because we only had to make one blood sacrifice to be in the ACA. And I feel like there would have been a lot more if we were in a cult.
That's pretty small. That's a small amount, I'd say. I had to do more for my job than I did for, volunteering with the ACA. So
I believe that.
There's something to think about there. But anyway, okay. Well, folks, we still have open lines. So if you want to convince us that, hey, Christianity isn't a cult, or Islam isn't a cult, or Judaism isn't a cult, or I don't know, Jainism isn't a cult. I mean, hey, come talk to us. We would love to talk to you about why you do or don't agree with these ideas. Otherwise, me and Sidney are just going to hang out because, like we probably would do that anyway. Sidney, I have nothing that's actually relevant to talk about with the show other than the fact that I've been playing competitive Pokemon again recently. And let me tell you something. That's shit's like chess. Okay. That shit's hard as hell. They're about to release a new official competitive Pokemon game. And I'm gearing up for it. And you know what? Like I just turned 30 this year. And there's a part of me that's like, why the hell am I doing this? But at the same time, I'm like, why the hell aren't I doing this? Life is short. So just
I'm telling you, those kind of philosophical questions, that's what's going to get you through.
Yeah.
I have been making a lot of felt donuts recently. While I can't say that is the same as Pokemon, I can say.
What can you say?
I can say
felt donuts. So like you have to go to Hobby Lobby and get some felt and you
so
get
I go to Amazon because I'm not a hypocrite, but here's a couple of them.
Okay. Ooh, wow. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Those look like nice cat toys almost.
They do. I don't have a cat, but I do have an Italian Greyhound.
But maybe I should purchase some for my new boy.
You should. You should. Speaking of your new boy, Super Chat, Super Cats. If you leave a super chat, you can feed a super cat.
I'll have to grab. He's out of my lap now. I'll have to go grab him again. I don't know how I feel about that, but we will do that at some point. I think because he's a special boy. Long-time viewers know I used to have an orange boy many years ago. His name was Pico, and he died of feline leukemia. Poor cat. So get your cats vaccinated for that because he had it when he was a kid and couldn't do anything about it, but.
I thought of a cult-related question for the audience.
Okay, that's awesome. Please do that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean for your feline leukemia to remind me of cults, but it did. I have ADD. I'm sorry.
For sure.
I will send you another. I'll send you another cat painting if you have a picture of that cat. I'll send you another one.
Oh yeah, that's right. But yes, we should actually mention that because as a wedding gift, Sidney I think the best wedding gift we got, I have to say, is because I have two other cats. A black cat and a gray cat, who don't really make appearances. But Sidney gave me hand painted pictures of these cats, and I don't know if I have any pictures on my computer to bring up, but they are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful portraits. And when I mean beautiful, I mean
Goofy.
the goofiest cat paintings I've ever seen. And I was like, wow, that's the most thoughtful thing anybody could get as a wedding gift. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
But anyway, you were saying.
So we were talking about the Manosphere documentary that just came out. Oh, thank you.
Yay, $5 says from Ann Christ in the Donut Fiend says, love those donuts Sidney made, which is, yeah, you got donut in your name. I would assume so. That's great. Thank you for the $5.
So we were talking about the Manosphere podcast that just came out.
Oh, yeah.
That, in my opinion, the Manosphere is a cult. There's no God, there's no religion, there's no prayer involved, but there is an initiation, there is the charismatic leadership, there is the desperate nature of those who follow them in search of answers, in search of guidance, willing to prove their loyalty or how basically how serious they are about whatever the message is that's being shared. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the potential for something like the Manosphere to become a podcast?
Yeah, well, it's a documentary that just came out on Netflix called Louis Theroux Inside the Manosphere. And I've been like fairly familiar with like a Manosphere stuff for the last couple of years. They definitely showed me some stuff that was new to me and some influencers that I hadn't really heard of or followed too closely. And yeah, there's definitely some cult-like elements to those guys. Like the money they make off this stuff, a lot of it boils down to, and this isn't all of their models, but a lot of it boils down to, hey, we're going to sell you a course on how to do this thing. And the course is always like, here's how you can make courses and make other people money. It's really just courses all the way down, sort of a pyramid-like structure, you could say, a pyramid-like schemata. To this.
And there's consequences also to not buying the course. The consequence being you're a little bitch.
You're a little bitch, and you aren't a man enough. You need to go to the gym X number of days a week, and your relationship needs to look like this, or you need to be dating multiple women. Yep. It's funny because like this one guy was like, the guy who is like in charge of the Fresh and Fit podcast was like, I want to have multiple wives one day. And then they talked to his girlfriend there and is like, hey, what do you think about this? He's like, no, I don't actually like, I don't think
you watch your find out in real time.
And they broke up later, apparently, which is hilarious. But it's just like, they really do just have these ideas that they probably don't always follow. They're also like in these nice houses and apartments and stuff. And one has to wonder, like, how much of that is real? Like, did you rent these cars for these shoes? Nope. I don't know.
You can rent the cars, you can rent the mansions, you can rent the jets. Mm-hmm. If you look, a lot of influencers just oddly enough take the same jet when they go on their private vacations, which is odd. Turns out you can rent those by the hour to flex in.
Yeah. Sometimes I think, man, podcasting, huh? Because like it's an embarrassing hobby to have. Let's be real. Okay. Like if you're a podcaster like us, you should be embarrassed. At least I'm not one of these Manosphere guys. Right. Like, there is a bottom and we're not quite there yet. We're below ground, but we're not like subterranean. It gets lower,
Right.
So
right.
I'm happy for that at least.
I will say, I have gotten a lot of, I've had a lot of very interesting interactions this week. As somebody who's been doing a podcast for a while, I had two very interesting outcomes that I did not expect from engagements with the audience. One was somebody commented on one of the video versions of my podcast. They said, this woman's face moves way too much. What's with all the exaggerated facial expressions? Just get to the point already. And I said, if you don't like the way my face looks, I highly recommend listening to the audio version of my podcast where that won't happen.
That's the best. Props to you for that. That's the best answer you could give because you're still selling. You're still like, hey, still listen to this.
Like, sorry, you're on my channel.
Face on it.
Yeah. I even said like, hey, so this is going to keep happening. Yeah. I recommend that you, and then they responded, I'm sorry, that was mean.
Nice.
And I was like, you know what? I forgive you and God forgives you.
That's good. That's a nice character arc.
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And then something else that happened was I posted a video, it was a debate video, and somebody commented without like going into crazy insane amounts of detail because it takes a lot of time. They commented something that was one of the most ludicrous arguments I've ever heard. So I took that comment, made a follow-up video that was like, hey, just in case this person isn't being sarcastic, here's my thoughts on this. And of course, that person gets combative in the comments. I responded with a combative video and then I deleted it. And they messaged me and they were like, hey, why'd you delete that video? What are you scared? Talk to me, you know, with like 10 different messages.
Yeah, that's normal. That's normal behavior.
And then I responded, hey, man, I deleted it because I realized in the grand scheme of things, none of this matters.
Yeah.
And then he responded,
true.
Oh, well, I disagree. And I said, that's cool. Have a great weekend. And he said, you too.
Yeah. For folks who do like respond to every comment, I used to be like, when I was a younger person, I used to think, wow, these big YouTube creators, why don't they respond to all these comments like I do? I look at every comment that comes in. And then when you get like some more people coming in and more comments and stuff, it's like, oh, it stops becoming worth it at a certain point.
Yeah.
Especially the folks who like want to seek you out to like debate you for some reason. And it's like, no, the videos out there, you can, you know, look at that and leave a comment.
Well, and I send them links to sign up to actually get on and debate me, and they never do.
Yeah.
I send them links. I'm like, hey, if you actually want to have this debate,
that's
join.
the other thing too. It's like, hey, I have a
do.
platform here. It is a call-in show, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of which, audience.
Yeah, speaking of which, audience, watchers, you know, whether you want to talk to us about Bigfoot or well, you know, Bigfoot's more of a truth-telling thing, actually, not really talking. But I guess if you want to talk to us about Bigfoot, you know, we'll take it. You know,
we'll talk to you about anything. You don't have to talk to us.
Well, I got these Bigfoot shorts on right now that my mom got for me. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know if I want to stand up and show
you know, I'm going to be totally honest with you though, having met you in person, any shorts that you own are going to be Bigfoot shorts.
Yeah, I wish you were wrong, but you're not.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Not that that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I get you. And, you know, whenever you wear green, I'm going to, you know, put you at the bottom of a rainbow because you'll be guarding a pot of gold there.
I was going to say, wait, I thought the pot of gold was.
I was getting to the closer there, but I wasn't quite there. Yeah. I don't know if I want to stand up and show these, but anyway, I got these like Bigfoot shorts on that my mom got me. And I asked her, like, why did you give me these Bigfoot shorts? Is this like a political statement or something? Like, what is it? And she's like, I don't know. I just thought that you would like them. And I was like, yeah, she's right, though. I do like them.
You're not wrong, but also how dare you?
Yeah. Yeah, it is funny. We do have one caller who's calling in right now. You want to talk to him? Okay, let's do it. It is a friend of the show, Jamie, the Blind Limey, who is calling in from the state of Texas here. Jamie, you are live on Talk Heathen. Thanks for joining us today, bud.
I know it's a little gauche again to call in as a fellow host, but there was something I wanted to ask because it's preyed on my mind. I think that we in the community need to be more introspective. Are organizations like the ACA susceptible to cult-like behavior?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as much as any nonprofit organization can be, sure. Yeah. I mean, like, what do we mean when we say that? I guess we mean, can there be an abuse of power? Can there be a strict set of ideologies to adhere to that can be harmful or negatively impacting people's lives? Yes. Right.
We have to engage.
Yeah. We're a very passionate nonprofit. We're a very opinionated nonprofit. And so there is a risk of groupthink in a sense. If most of the people think this way,
denial of information proving your ideas wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So like, absolutely. Is anybody, any organized group that has some sort of structure that involves hierarchy can be susceptible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And so what do we do to avoid it?
You have rules, you have bylaws, you have presumably democratic processes, right?
And I think also the encouragement of differing ideas and opinions. So if somebody comes to one of us and they say, hey, I don't know that atheism is for me, I've got some questions. We don't say, well, those questions are actually you falling for something that's toxic for you. Those questions are you not being strong enough to, it's hard for me to make the same example because in the church, they would say that's the devil getting in your brain. But when you don't believe in the devil, it's hard to blame those thoughts. But I'm sure it can happen somehow. Or being peer pressured into believing certain social things that maybe you disagree with. Maybe we don't all share the same like social political ideas. Maybe we don't all think the same things in terms of the way that we should represent the brand or the way that we should represent our ideas and beliefs and things like that. Maybe there are members that act differently than other members and post differently. I'm trying to be vague, but I think there's absolutely an opportunity for people to feel pressured to behave in certain ways because their group tells them to, and not question it, or if they have questions, not ask those questions. And as long as we as an organization are encouraging discourse between our hosts, like Dan and I imagine there's topics we haven't thought to talk about yet that we disagree on. But earlier when I said all religions are cults, the first thing he did was kind of disagree and push back on that. And when you don't encourage that pushback, and when you don't encourage that discourse, and when you don't encourage people to do research, that I think is the beginning of what might slowly or quickly develop into a cult-like mentality. And we actually do face cults within the atheist belief system or within the atheist content creation space, for sure. There are absolutely groups that I've actually made content about because they do the things that we say we don't like organized religions doing in the name of atheism. So anybody who's pressuring you to leave your faith in order to become an atheist is just as bad as somebody who's pressuring you to stay in your faith because of God, in my opinion.
And so, I mean, this is not to glaze the ACA or to
no.
give criticism. This would not be the proper vector to do that. But I just wanted to highlight, and I'm glad you are both very candid about this, that none of us are impervious to irrational thought,
right?
And it does behoove us to police our own.
Right.
I mean, good chat. I mean, I won't take up too much more of your time, but any other thoughts on the topic of the irony of cult-like behavior in organizations that ostensibly fight against cults?
Something you said I think is important, where you said, this isn't to disparage the ACA, where it's definitely not. But I do think one of the markers of not being a cult is being able to look inward into the organization that you're a part of and wonder, is this a cult? And then find all the reasons why you don't think so or you do think so. So I think using them as an example while we're currently streaming for them is actually a great sign that we aren't in a cult, because if we were, we would be, muting your call or hanging up or pretending like we lost the connection or something. So I think you being able to call in and ask that.
My messages would be currently exploding with staff going, "Shut up, JB, you're making us look bad," and that I assure you is not happening.
No, and if you disappear, we'll know what happened.
Right.
So keep calling in so we know that you didn't disappear.
Hey, I'm close enough to the studio that they can come get me physically if they don't.
That's when you just see a hand come through and just like pull me off the stream.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you very much for indulging my little talking point there.
Yeah.
I'll leave you be, and good luck with the rest of the show.
Thanks, Jamie. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and thanks for the great topic of conversation, which I think was good because yeah.
You forgot to show the cat for the last super chat.
Well, okay, so I did think about that, and then we're about to get to the call here, so I have to go get him. Do you want me to go get him?
What if should we save him for the chats at the end? Should we show him?
But then that disincentivizes other people to donate and do the super chat.
You're right.
So
right.
if you can you hold the fort for 30 seconds?
I
can.
All
right, I'll be right back. Okay.
So chat, have you ever found yourself involved in a group or a club or an organization that in hindsight you thought had cult-like behaviors, cult-like mentality, cult-like rules and regulations? I'd love to hear your thoughts. For example, I did stand-up for 16 years, and I can tell you that there are arts communities that I absolutely think would fall under, especially when you get involved in theater and things like that, that would fall under the guise of a cult. And I think there were different sub-communities within stand-up that absolutely, in my opinion, in hindsight, would count as a cult, and I wouldn't hesitate to call a cult.
He was having a nice nap by the window.
There he is.
I hope it was worth it. There he is. There's that boy. with his little.
Our views are going to spike when he's on screen. There's going to
Yeah,
spike.
as they should. As they should. I wish I didn't have to have this cone on him because I feel, it's not natural. It's not right. Cats shouldn't have cones on him, but
he looks great though. It's a great color for him.
It does kind of, he does look regal. He almost looks like he's a scholar. We'll give a bonus look at this boy because who doesn't love it? Who doesn't love it? I don't know. Anyway.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful,
beautiful boy. Okay, well, you're saying stand-up comedy is a cult, and I would say yes.
So I was asking the audience. I'm reading the chat here. I was asking them if they ever found themselves involved in a group that maybe in hindsight, a group or a club or organization of some kind that they would now in hindsight categorize as a cult. And I was saying how being involved in the arts communities like theater, like stand-up, like improv, things like that for so long, there are absolutely subcultures to those communities that I would call a cult. Watching people, the kind of hive mind mentality, right? Where somebody pinpoints something and they say, hey, this is a problem. And then they get dogpiled on to either stop talking about it or stop bringing it up, or they don't get booked anymore, or they get ostracized from the community because the community doesn't want to hear any more of what it is they have to say. We hear it in academia, right? Some of the most famous scientists of our time were dogged on when they first came out with their ideas and were ostracized. And some of them were even just totally, completely ostracized in their communities and discounted in terms of their credentials and their intelligence, when now we take their ideas and we go, that was actually a really good idea. They were onto something. I think any community that forms any dependence for its members, any kind of dependence, any proof or earning of their membership, any constant need to basically, I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of words today, which is weird because I'm usually always yapping. But basically, anytime that you're a part of something that constantly needs your validation on why you continue to belong, and then doesn't stop there, they also want you to promote it to others. They also want you to bring in more members. They also raise the stakes, right? It's never just give us $1,000 and you're in. Then it's next month it's $2,000. Next month it's bring 5 people. Next month it's make a certain sacrifice, dump your girlfriend, do something else. They're always pushing the goalpost is essentially what I'm saying, regardless of whether or not God is involved.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. There is a raising of the stakes, sort of a higher place you can be in the hierarchy that actually you may not even be that higher. It's just you're just getting drained of more of your personal resources. That is definitely true. We do have some other folks who want to talk to us. Before we do that though, Sidney, real quickly, I just want to give a shout out to the folks. Thank you for waiting on the lines. But also, speaking of supporting us, now again, as we made the argument that we're not a cult, or at least I don't think so, we are a nonprofit. So we do ask for folks' support by sending us the super chats, and we will read as many as we can as they come in. And we also want to invite you guys to come join our weekly watch parties at the Free Thought Library on Sundays for live viewings of Talk Heathen and our next show today, The Atheist Experience, which happen every Sunday at the Free Thought Library. Doors are open at noon, and it's a great place to meet other folks in the community. And lastly, if you are in the Austin area, you should follow us on Meetup to keep up with community events and see what's going on at tiny.cc/ACA Meetup to see some of the other events that are happening in the Austin area. And with that, let's go ahead and go to our next caller in the queue. We have Lee calling in from Canada who wants to talk to us. Lee, you are live on Talk Heathen. How's it going?
I'm doing well. I was just at an atheist brunch here locally in southern Ontario. And part of our topic of discussion was talking about religion and deconversion from religion. And I used to live in the United States. I was born in the United States, moved to Canada about 15 years ago. I also used to be Catholic, and I deconverted from Catholicism about just a little bit before that. I'm finding a similar pattern between deconversion from Catholicism as deconverting from the ideology and the myths of being an American. And I wonder, too, about whether or not Americans should start to be more critical about what they, their beliefs in their own country and who they are. Is it a cult? Is being an American, is that a cult?
Oh.
Yeah. The answer is yes.
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
So Americans are so good at propaganda. We literally invented much of the marketing technology and tools that are used globally all around the world. And so absolutely our government has used that in ways to boost the idea of the American identity being one of the most central things to Americans. It's, God and country, right? It's like these two things coalescing into each other makes up what has been, or what is meant to be an American for many people for decades. So, other countries look at us and see our elementary schoolers standing up for the school pledge every morning as weird because it is.
And because it is.
Yeah, and seeing this idea of anything that's not in the typical milieu of American capitalism, for example, like even just suggesting, hey, maybe we should have a more socialized system of healthcare, can be seen as un-American. And this idea of being un-American, being bad, is so linked in the American brain. It's unreal. I mean, it drives all of our politics, and it's used every single freaking day. So yeah, absolutely. Being an American is kind of like being in a cult.
Yes.
And that's why you see the pushback now of people who are considered themselves liberal are seen as un-American. There's a tie in there, because there is this idea that, there's a certain way in the American life, and if you're against this way, you are a bad person. Not just different, not just exploring other options, but you're a bad person. And that if that's not cult-like behavior, then I don't know what is, right? So.
Yes. Something that actually shocked me, that I learned maybe 3 years ago tops, was I was interviewing somebody from the UK, and his focus is more like history, social stuff. But I was telling him about America being founded on, religious freedom, and how we came here to be able to exercise our religion however we want, because back then we couldn't, because the king would stop us. And he told me that what they learn in the UK is that Americans were actually chased out of England because we were the religious zealots that were trying to get everybody to join our cult. Essentially, we were the ones that were the extremists that believed in the more extreme version of, say, Quakerism at the time. We were the ones that were encouraging the burning at the stake, things like that. And that's why we were asked to leave. And so it's interesting to hear, in this country, we celebrate the fact that we broke free and that we came here and we founded this country so we could practice whatever religion we wanted, when in reality, we were asked to leave because we weren't comfortable with people being able to practice multiple religions or different religions. And obviously in Europe, they had their own issues in terms of the Church of England versus Catholicism. They're not the perfect system. It was just very interesting to hear our version of events versus their version of events. And that, I think, is a sign of the cult-like mentality, when you're kept from learning about things that might be negative, or that might kind of change how you view the start of the United States.
Yep. I fully agree. Lee, what do you think?
I agree with you. One thing I remember having a difficult time with when I did live in the States. I was in the U.S. Army Reserves while I was there. Like I said, I was born and raised in the United States. And I remember how difficult I would find it if someone accused me of being unpatriotic. And eventually I was able to explain to myself and to others, hey, this ideal I have is actually patriotic, even though you think it is. It's like there's real Americans who understand patriotism, and there's those other Americans that corrupt what patriotism is. That sounds very parallel to Christians talking about real Christians and not real Christians. But I'm to the point now. I mean, I moved to Canada, and I did so on purpose. As a teacher, I didn't want to teach in the United States anymore. And
what?
I decided.
I'm shocked.
Yeah,
the environment
really.
here is so wonderful for teachers.
But I decided that I don't care if someone thinks I'm patriotic or not anymore. I really couldn't care less. And it took a journey to get there. Just like I don't care if someone thinks I'm God-fearing or not. It's like I really don't care.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and isn't it interesting how being called not patriotic is supposed to be the worst thing you can be? I just think that's interesting how that's handled that way, right? In my opinion, if America weren't a cult, they would say, you're not a patriot. And you'd go, oh, well, and then continue to pay your taxes and do your due diligence and follow the law. But not being considered a patriot is supposed to be this horrible thing. And cults always have a label and a punishment and a thing that you don't want to be, that you're really close to being if you don't watch it.
It's almost like being called a heathen, a talk heathen, if you will. What? Oh, there it is. There it is. He did the thing. Anyway, I don't know. Every time I've gone internationally, which has only been a handful of times, but it has happened in the last few years now, I am embarrassed to tell other people I'm an American in some ways because I know they're going to be able to tell anyway. But it's like our reputation for this is so globally known now. It's so out there that people who have never been to the United States, who will never ever go, are going to know about it now just because of all the American media that's out there. That's very nakedly showing this idea that Americans are just kind of crazy when it comes to their national identity. It's very, very embarrassing. But, so it goes, Lee. So it goes.
You can talk about this if you like, or you can drop it. It's fine. But another question that came up was that about Canadian patriotism. Mm-hmm. And see, Canada, a lot of people in Canada are feeling threatened right now by the U.S. And patriotism has never been a huge thing in Canada, except maybe when the hockey teams are playing. But now it's becoming more serious. And, and the question is, how far do we take the mythology behind being a Canadian and taking that seriously to bring unity up, to defend, basically, so that everyone gets on the same page about protecting who we are against Americans?
Well, Lee, it's hard to have patriotism for a mining company that secretly disguises itself as a national government, right? That's what I would say. But no, in all seriousness, I don't think I'm not sure if the answer to problems is let's make a national mythology for us to obsessively tie our identity to and course correct on. I mean, I think it worked for Americans for a while and now it's kind of not. I don't know. I'm not saying that sort of national unity doesn't have its perks and doesn't have its benefits, but I wonder if mankind is just kind of or should be beyond that now, right? I think Canada has its own problematic history. I'm not saying it's equivalent to the U.S. or worse to the U.S., but it has its own things going on, right? And so I think Canadians are quite knowledgeable of that and are quite critical of that. So I don't know if that's the direction that should be taken. But then again, I'm not Canadian. I can't speak to that too intimately.
And can I point out also, to lending to the idea that America can be considered a cult and the United States is a cult, something else that happens within control groups like this, whether they're religious or not, is one group is very rah. We were using the manosphere example, for example. They're very rah. This is how it is. This is how we do it. If you're not one of us, you're a loser. Or if you're not one of us, you're, in religion's example, you're damned to hell. Or if you're not one of us, in America's example, you're not a patriot, blah, blah, blah. Canada, who is next to us, some Canadians go, oh, is that really important? Is it really important to be a patriot? Am I a patriot? Does Canada have patriots? Does that mean we don't care about patriotism? Some people look at that and they go, ew, I don't want a part of that. That sounds crazy. I'm just going to not engage with those people. Other people go, wait, if Americans who aren't patriots aren't true Americans, am I not a true Canadian because I've never really felt patriotic? And so that's kind of how these cults extend their reach, is they make other people start questioning their own reality, when otherwise that person would have been totally fine being a mild at best patriot for their country. Now they're thinking, well, these people that for whatever reason I look up to, or these people that keep making it onto my TV or into my podcast or whatever, keep insisting that if you're not a patriot, you're a loser. Does that count for me too? Interesting. How can I be a better Canadian patriot? And then the next thing you know, you've got the same exact division between groups of thought. And so I just thought that was an interesting example. That's a prime sign of the impact that cults can have, even on people that aren't members of that cult.
Here's an idea. If we want to have more national pride, how about let's do something that we can be actually proud in. Right? Yep. Let's do that. let's do, I don't know. But that's not going to be the case, right? I don't know. These are all questions that are beyond our ability to really capture fully and answer fully, I think. But Lee, I think you and I are probably share the same mindset as us, where it's like, yeah, it's all kind of fucked. And we just got to do our best every day and figure out what we can do with it, right? But that's all I got, Lee. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we let you go?
No, thanks for taking my call, and keep up the promoting of humanism, critical thinking, and secularism. Thanks,
Lee. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
It looks like we have a TikTok caller pending.
Yeah, we do, and we also have a caller calling in from India, which I feel like we should take that, because India is like kind of a way different time. I don't know what time it is in India right now, but it can't be normal waking hours, right? It's probably something, I don't know.
That is not my area of expertise.
All right,
shocking.
Let's jump to our India caller then. Let's do that real quick. I want to talk to, I believe it's Nyanth. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Nyanth, who is calling in from India. Welcome to Talk Heathen.
That's correct. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it's around 12 a.m., but that's completely fine.
Oh, wow.
I'm a full-time actor, so my schedules are all over the place. So I sleep at random times. Yeah.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Anyway, yeah, thank you so much. I just heard the previous call, and the call ended with a very interesting statement, like, keep up the good work and promote humanism, right? I found that to be a very interesting word, humanism.
Yeah.
Because I take, so I'm vegan, and I want to discuss veganism. I feel like veganism is an extension of human rights. That's kind of where I'm coming from. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm also vegan. I've identified as a vegan since 2020. Yeah, so I'm in the exact same boat as you. I believe animal rights should be an extension of human rights. That's why I've graduated from the term secular humanist, and I prefer the term sentientist, because I believe that it's not just human rights that should be considered, but also the rights of any conscious being that has a capacity for suffering. So I'm in the same boat as you, my friend.
Oh, that's awesome. I wasn't aware of that.
I'm the only active vegan at the ACA, I believe. So you called in at a good time, because there's half a dozen of us at least that host this thing every Sunday, and I'm the only one that's vegan. And you know what? I try to convince other people of the same points, right? But I do my best every day with it. But there you go. Now, Sidney, what's your excuse? Huh?
Well, I was actually vegan for years.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah,
I was vegan for a long time. I legitimately don't remember why I stopped being vegan. There was a while in my house with my now husband where we realized we had gone months without eating any meat products. We still had dairy. I think dairy is maybe one of the reasons why I segued out of veganism. But to date, we really don't eat a lot of meat products. We don't eat a lot of steak, a lot of red meat, a lot of chicken. It's not a common thing. We eat a lot of plant proteins without even intending to, honestly. That just happens to be, you eat a lot of avocado toast, you eat a lot of different things, and the next thing you know, it's gone 6 weeks without actually eating red meat of any kind. And I think that it's actually good for the environment. I think it is shown time and time again that financially it's a lot cheaper to eat plant-based proteins. Even if you switch to, I think freegan is the term, where you're vegan the majority of the time, but once every once every blue moon or whatever, you break that to eat meat or cheese. We have seen that there's a positive impact on not only your body, things like blood pressure, things like that, but also socially, environmentally, financially, economically. There are arguments to be made that veganism is actually a good habit to try and work into your life on an occasion, in general. So I'm all for it. I just think I forgot about it. I think I might accidentally be a freegan and not even mean to be.
There you go.
Right.
There you go. Nance, your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like I think there's a lot of misconception for starters based on what people think veganism is. I want to clear that out of the way, right? So veganism, according to me, the way I define veganism, it is an applied ethical position. So we have some core values like as ObjectivelyDan said, I'm sorry if I'm ObjectivelyDan, like ObjectivelyDan said, sentience. Like if sentience is a core value people have, when we apply those values, so that's an applied ethical framework, right? So veganism, according to me, is an ethical position that advocates for the equal trade adjusted application of human rights to non-human sentient beings. So basically, if let's say there's a non-human animal and there's a human animal, they both have characteristics that are similar to each other and that are not similar to each other. Now, if I were to make these unsimilar traits one by one, if I were to make them similar, at some point we'll arrive at this being who's, who isn't human, but is also animal, but is somewhat human, like maybe like a Neanderthal or human adjacent sentient being,
right?
Or maybe with the intelligence level of an animal of sorts. Like the way, so veganism to me is the way I will treat that sentient being is the way I will treat animals. The way I will treat human beings is the way I will treat animals. So that's the way I define veganism. I feel like I also feel like most people aren't aware. I mean, I'm pretty glad. I think I'm speaking with people who are quite aware of what veganism is. But for example, in the chat, like I can see people saying dairy doesn't kill. And I feel like that's such a misconception. People don't really know what happens in the dairy industry. Like, for example, the cows have to be forcibly impregnated to even start making milk because she's a mammal like humans, right? And then her babies, if the male calf is born, a male calf don't make milk, so they're sent to slaughter. Female calves are separated. And if I were to go to a random human and if I were to forcibly impregnate her without her consent, I would call it sexual assault. I don't know what you guys would call it, but I would call it sexual assault. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I feel like the animal agriculture industry thrives on sexually exploiting the reproductive systems of female non-human animals. And I feel like because we have this sort of the symmetry breaker that humans, we cannot do such thing to humans, but it's okay to do to animals. This notion, this thinking that we have is what I'm challenging. Like what, for example, Sidney Davis, you said that you aren't vegan. Like what do you think, according to you, would be the morally relevant difference between humans and animals that justifies farming animals but not farming humans for whatever reason? Food, clothing, cosmetics, horse riding, whatnot, right?
Yeah, no, there is no justification. No, you're absolutely right. There's no justification. I think a lot of people who don't partake in this, whether it's vegetarian, whether it's vegan, it's a convenience thing. One day you run out of almond milk and all you have is half and half, and then you use half and half, and then you're using half and half every day, and then the next thing you know, you've put dairy back in your life. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right on the nose with that.
Yeah. Yeah, but sorry, go ahead, objectively.
No, go ahead.
What do I call you? I'm sorry. Can I just call you Dan?
Yeah, you can just call me Dan. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying, for example, like we will not use convenience as an excuse when it comes to if, let's say, we were farming humans. We would be like, I don't care about your convenience. I think that we should stop farming humans. That's just an objectively wrong thing to do, in my opinion. So why is it that we are okay with saying convenience when it comes to animals, but not for humans?
That's a great question. I think you're absolutely right. I think the question that you're posing is something that is a very important question, and that a lot of people should kind of take a step back and think about. Absolutely. I think you're, again, right on the nose.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in the US, we are one of, if not, I think the most subsidized meat industries, right, in the world, right? And so, like, we were talking about propaganda here in the US. The animal agriculture propaganda is alive and well and has been for many years. We were told, hey, we have milk in every single public school system ever in the country, because we were told you need to have milk, you need to have this calcium in order to grow up strong, because apparently milk is the only way you can get calcium, right? Can't get it through any other method. And we're also taught this idea that, well, we need to have a balanced diet. Okay, we need to promote balance. And what balance means is you take a little bit from this food group, a little bit from this food group, and that comes from these sources and these things, right? And so I think while Sidney is my co-host and she's my friend, and I share the politics of every other person like her. I think the animal rights thing is a thing that a lot of lefty people like us, or at least I don't know your politics. I don't know what else you believe, but
I'm definitely left for sure. Yeah,
sure. But I find that it's still a growing thing that I'm trying to convince other lefty people that, hey, like, this is an area that has been neglected, severely so, and it needs to be talked about more. And why is it so hard? Because it involves one of the biggest changes you have to make, maybe more so than any other leftist position, because you have to change daily habits with this, right? And daily purchasing decisions. And it's got to be awkward when you go out with friends and say, hey, you're trying this thing. And it's a huge impact on people's lives here. And so it's harder. I'm not saying it's justified to not be that way, but I'm saying it's a longer road to be taken, and it's a harder one for sure.
And I think also the idea, I've noticed there's been a larger push now than ever for adopt, don't shop, don't buy leather goods unless it's secondhand from a thrift store. So I do think that we are headed in the right direction, but I think especially in times like now, where all across the world people are just really struggling, whether it's financially, socially, whether it's they're lonely, or they have a difficulty affording groceries, things like that. I think if you press people, I think their mindset is, nothing's going well right now, I want to have a good cup of coffee, which isn't a good excuse. But I think there's people that the one thing they get is whatever their favorite meal is or their favorite flavor. And so, as Dan said, it would be very difficult to go to those people and be like, hey, I know that you have all this other stuff going on. You adopted a dog from a shelter, and you bought your leather jacket from Goodwill. You didn't buy it new, but also, do you mind not using butter anymore? I think to me, as small as that sacrifice is, I think for some people that's like the one thing they've got keeping them just sane right now.
Yeah.
Again, not an excuse. I think if people were totally honest about it, that might be part of why they aren't a vegan, even though they hear what you're saying, they agree with what you're saying, they know that you're speaking facts, they've seen the videos of these, cow farms and pig farms and slaughterhouses and things like that. We drove by a farm in Texas that was so overladen with cow poop that we smelled it like a mile before we got there and a mile afterward. I think it's easier to do things like adopt a dog from an animal shelter and use oat milk in their coffee and, maybe buy secondhand goods than it is to say, and I'm also never going to eat fried chicken again, or I'm also never going to use animal products of any kind. Yep. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, whatever we just spoke for the last couple of minutes, I understand that both of you said it is not a justification, and I agree it's not. But what would be our attitudes if humans were being farmed? Would we have the same attitude? I guess we will not.
No.
We will say, like, even if you're having, absolutely right. So even if you're having a shitty day, even if you're having an absolutely messed up day, I don't think you should be consuming human dairy. I don't think we should be paying for animals or humans to be sexually exploited just so that you can have butter in your milk or your coffee,
Absolutely.
right? So,
you're 100%
so I feel like, Yeah, so that's the kind of standard I want to challenge. I'm trying to understand what is the symmetry breaker that justifies this kind of line of thought. For example, some people say that. Sorry, I'm getting.
Is that your phone, Sidney? Whose phone is that?
Not me.
Oh, okay. That's not me. I don't know what that was. Sorry.
That's not me either. That's okay. But for example, some people say that animals are lesser intelligent than humans.
Yeah.
But by that logic, well, if I find humans who have the capacity of the cerebral or the cognitive capacity of animals, I still wouldn't think it's okay to farm those types of humans.
Totally.
And some people will be like, well, yeah, humans are it's just our species. We just do not farm our species. By that metric, well, I wouldn't farm Neanderthals. I wouldn't farm hypothetical alien species like Superman or, Goku, Gohan, the Vegetas, like your anime superheroes. I wouldn't farm them even though they're not human. I believe that the fact that they're sentient is what matters to me.
Yes.
And I believe this is the case for most people as well. For most people who are commenting, saying stuff like, oh, we are omnivores. Yes, we are. But just because we are doesn't mean we should. And just in general, I feel like most people haven't thought about the symmetry breaker. If we start logically pushing the symmetry breaker, I feel like most people who are sane will arrive at sentience as the symmetry breaker.
I agree.
And therefore, they ought to be vegan. They ought to be vegan. Like whatever people say, I feel like they come back to, it's all about taste, it's about convenience, but we will never agree to such excuses when it comes to human meat and human dairy.
I agree. I think we're on the same page. I also hold the position more people ought to be vegan, and I will continue to advocate 100%. For it. And I will always talk to people about it. Our backup host, Nyanth, his name is Flabbergasted, and he's been typing to us since this conversation has started. Okay, because he pushes back on our position, and he wants to jump in now. He wants to talk to you. Would you like to talk to him for just a few minutes?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. Okay, so I got Flabbergasted. You're now in. There's 4 of us now, so let's try to. I'm gonna try to keep this between Flabbergasted and Nyanth, and maybe I'll come in as referee or something. I don't know, but I don't want to overwhelm the conversation here. But okay, Flabbergasted, you're pushing back on some of this. You're saying that people shouldn't be vegan. Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. Okay, I'm definitely not saying people shouldn't be vegan.
Okay,
I'm saying that I'm not convinced that being vegan is a moral necessity.
Okay,
that being an omnivore is inherently immoral. And most of the arguments, especially the arguments in this particular conversation so far, have been arguments against the industries themselves and not against the actual consumption issues. So I'm not convinced that, I agree, right? The way in which animals are treated on dairy farms, the way they're treated in these slaughterhouses, in these mass production farms, the industrialized process of eating meat and what is necessary sometimes to create and meat eating industry that is as large as the one that we have, especially here in America, is, and all of the atrocities related to that are absolutely problematic. I'm not in favor of, and I condemn those things. I think we should reform those systems so that way they are not these problematic systems in the same way. There are problems with capitalism and all of this other stuff. But the eating of meat at the basic level, I'm not convinced is inherently immoral. And until I'm convinced that it's inherently immoral, I don't see justification to take the actions to have all of those dramatically major life-changing alterations that Dan was alluding to. It has a huge impact. And just the same way that I'm, and a lot of vegans hate this analogy, the same way I'm absolutely convinced that using Amazon is inherently problematic. It takes a lot of changes, and I'm not convinced that it's justified for me to make all of those changes in my life, and that it's worth all of the consequences that I face and the efforts that it comes simply just to be more moral than I would otherwise be, especially if the alternatives are still going to end up being problematic in different ways. So that's my position.
Can I ask you a question, Flabbergasted?
Yeah, hit me.
Does it change? Would it change your mind if for every single reason we need to consume animal products, we have invented a genuine, legitimate resource that mimics that exact purpose, that does not involve taking a life of a living being. For example, back in the day, there was not a good milk alternative. Back when I was a vegetarian as a kid, meat replacements tasted like garbage. I still don't like black bean burgers. I think they're dry. But now that we have chicken nuggets that taste exactly like Tyson chicken nuggets, we have oat milk that, in my opinion, is the same exact texture as whole milk. So when I get a latte, I don't feel like I'm being cheapened out because I'm using oat milk instead, and it doesn't spoil nearly as fast, so it's economically more accessible. Do you think that an argument can be made that if there is an exact alternative that is available to you at the same availability, and you still choose the one that cost a sentient life, does that then bring in a moral dilemma?
I think to a certain extent, I don't think it becomes a moral dilemma. I think this is why I accept veganism as morally superior. I do think that if you are avoiding these sometimes unnecessary harms to things that don't necessarily need to be harmed, that is better, right? I don't think that causing harm to any living thing is inherently immoral. And I think we end up drawing arbitrary lines about what we say we are allowed to harm and we aren't allowed to harm. And I find that those lines tend to be arbitrary. Yeah. Someone is drawing a line saying, I'm going to draw the line here. I draw the line at humanity. And other people are saying, I'm drawing the line at sentience. I find that line to be kind of a difficult line to justify in a lot of ways, because that line is poorly defined. It's like, I think I said in the chat that it's like when we used to define humans as tool makers, and then we find out other animals make tools, then we have to redefine what it means to be human. We end up doing that a lot with sentience. And so we're justifying harms in this way and then that way. And we're doing it based off the lines we draw. So I draw the line at humanity. I think I can justify that line pretty well. So that's my position.
I have a million thoughts, but you know what? We have a caller here, and our caller should be the one responding.
Right.
So I want to get Nyanth on this. I also think it's hilarious, Sidney, that you talk about the substitute stuff, because we have Nyanth, who is in India, one of the longest, like a country with one of the longest traditions of veganism ever, that hasn't had any need for the substitute stuff today, that people are like, oh, well, we need a substitute for all this stuff. It's like, yeah, you kind of don't, though. Like, there's lots of people that have been fine without it. Right. Anyway, Nyanth, I want your take on this. You go ahead and join us, please.
Hit me, friend. Hit me. Let's go.
No, absolutely. Yeah, for starters, I'm actually in agreement with you. I don't think the consumption of meat is inherently unethical. And I also don't think veganism is about not consuming meat or flesh. I think veganism is an animal rights movement that goes beyond diet. It's not just about practicing diet. It's also about your cosmetics, your clothing, just the whole vision of how you view animals as commodities. We're removing that aspect from people's, worldviews. For example, roadkill or lab-grown meat, those are flesh, which I don't personally see an issue with consuming. If a human died in roadkills, like I don't personally think it's unethical to consume a human after they died of natural causes, or if they died because of an accident. Same thing with animals. As I said, I apply veganism, the way I apply it is I would treat an animal the way I would treat a trait equalized human. So by that metric, I don't think consuming meat is inherently unethical, but also I feel like sentience, as you said, it's an arbitrary line. But the way I arrive at this line is by I've tested my consistency. For example, what I did was I thought of this person who has a cancerous tumor in their body. When they had the tumor inside of their body, I felt like oppressing them or harming them or farming them would be wrong, would be unpermissible on my view. But let's say that tumor was operated and the tumor was kept outside on the operation table, then I felt like that tumor, if you were to farm that tumor, I had no issue with it. I think it was permissible to do so. So I realized that it was when the tumor had the capacity for sentience is when the ability to regain sentience is when I believed, so that's where I'm drawing my line. Yes, is it defined? Yes, the way I define sentience, it's an amalgamation of experiences. It's an amalgamation of unique experiences that a being can have. If a being can have a unique experience, then that being is sentient. But I want to go back to the original question that I asked on this call. What, according to you, Flabbergasted, would be a trait that is true of animals that is not true of humans? That if were made to be true of humans, would then justify, on your view, farming humans?
I don't think I draw the trait at being human.
Okay, so for example, let's say I'm just walking on the road, right? I'm just walking the road and I have this is a hypothetical scenario, right? I have a scanner and I'm scanning these bunch of human-looking people. And I realize that, wait, this person isn't human. They're actually from the Superman race. They're actually Kryptonian. So they aren't human anymore. Would you then, because you said you draw the line at human, these Kryptonians aren't humans. So would you then think it's permissible to farm these Kryptonians?
I mean, yeah, if the world operated in a way that the world doesn't operate, then I might have to reconsider how I draw these lines, right? Once we actually interact with another species that is traveling across the stars, and we find aliens on Mars that have societies and planets and stuff, and we run into this moral conundrum, then we have to rethink these things. We don't live in that world right now.
Sorry, not Nayeth. Flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Okay, if Neanderthals were here today, like this isn't, that's not science fiction, right?
But they're not.
Neanderthals, no, but they existed on the planet, though.
Yeah,
and so. Right.
So and if they were still around, then I'd have to reconsider my lines. If I'm going to say that anything that's not human needs to be that, then
if they're still around, why would it not be just because they exist as a concept?
Well, then, like, are we okay with eating leprechauns? Are we okay with eating unicorns? Like, can I?
That's the point.
But the thing is, like when we extrapolate these things to things that aren't real, we're asking different questions than how we're actually interacting with reality today.
But the reality is we have beings on this earth that can feel, right?
Yeah.
And can sense and can have a sense of pain and can suffer. Right?
Yeah, and I'm not advocating or encouraging like causing pain and suffering and harm inherently to them. And this is where we end up in the whole conversation about the problem of the industry and the way we do these things. Right? I grew up on a farm. I grew up with animals that we slaughtered, and there are absolutely ways of killing an animal that do not create excess stress and anxiety and stuff like that. And that's like the same any more than it would if that animal was to die in another fashion, right? So in that sense, is killing and eating an animal inherently a problem, right? If the animal dies of its own volition and then we eat it, that's not a problem. But the animal dying of its own volition, if it has other animals around it that have a sense of community and have an attachment to that animal, are going to feel distress. If we were to kill it in another sense, they were going to have that same type of distress if we killed it, right? It's different than like shooting it in the back of the head in front of other animals. Is different than bringing it behind.
Farm animals don't live to their natural lifespan. You're cutting it short. Right.
Okay. Why does?
I mean, there's no farm on earth that lets a cow live up to 20 years and then.
But I don't think why do we think a cow has to live its natural lifespan all the time?
I think it's actually.
I want Nayeth. Hold on. Let's get.
You're taking over.
Sorry, Flabbergasted. I feel like we're just kind of moving away from what the crux of the discussion is. I like when you mentioned this is not this reality. For example, in philosophy and literature of logic, we tend to use hypotheticals regularly to test the consistency of one's values, right? For example, the most famous trolley problem. It's not really gonna happen, like randomly finding 5 people on a track and another person on another track, and a train somehow going to hit unless it's a Bollywood movie, of course. But I mean, you won't just happen to chance upon this lever that you can probably save these 5 people. But it's a hypothetical. And when we come to reality, right, things like when I say assume such a thing exists, that thing already exists in the sense of the reality of that dimension. For example, I'm sure you watch Marvel movies, I'm sure you watch DC movies, or I'm sure you watch some form of science fiction movies. And when you're watching these movies, you always feel like a sense of, okay, what the antagonist is doing there is wrong. That means even though it doesn't exist in this reality, you're still able to form a perception of what is right and wrong in that reality based on the values you have today in this reality.
Yeah, so that's because we're drawing parallels in those situations to the actual reality we have. And so when we look at Superman comic and we are saying, well, no one would do this to a Kryptonian, we are basically arbitrary. There's a suspension of disbelief that exists that allows us to say, okay, we're treating kryptonites as human because we're saying that there's some sort of similar trait that these two things share, even if we can't quantify this thing, right? Even if we can't explain what that similarity is that allows us to say, okay, this is why we're treating Kryptonians as humans. This is why we're treating Martians, like the Martian Manhunter, as human. Even though it's so clearly not. We're humanizing these things, and we're saying, okay, now we're making these things equal to human. And the thing about the trolley problem is the trolley problem is almost never going to happen, but it could theoretically happen. Like in theory, there's nothing that's preventing that scenario from actually playing out in reality. And so if we were to actually engage with that in our reality, we would have to think about it in these fashions, right? But the idea of a Kryptonian race actually coming into reality, it starts breaking apart. And I acknowledge and I admit with no problem that if that was to happen, if we were to have a Kryptonian here, Superman shows up, then I need to reconsider and I need to reevaluate. I'm not saying that my position is perfect and not subject to a reevaluation or a change. I'm taking the information that I have with the world that I live in as I understand it and applying my understanding to that there. And then should things change and I get new information, I get a new thing I have to interact with, then I need to reevaluate that and then come to a conclusion.
All right.
May I make an argument?
Yeah, go ahead.
That
Absolutely,
the entire idea is actually way simpler than all of this, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think at the point, and we've seen this with types of animals. Notice there are types of animals that you're allowed to eat and types of animals you're not. Why? Because at the point where they can communicate with human beings in a way that we understand, we no longer eat them. So if, say, for example, some people, I'm from Arkansas, some people say, hey, if you hit a deer and the deer dies, you can take it home and eat it. If you hit a deer and it's laying on the road going, oh, God, my leg, somebody, God, help. Do you think they're going to take that deer home? If he's saying, like, I have a family, I've got kids, call my wife, you're not going to eat that deer.
Yeah, unless you're Ted Bundy or somebody. But
right.
yeah,
Those are, and that's a cultural distinction too, because you're saying that about animals that doesn't apply universally.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, in the United States, you go to jail if you eat your neighbor's cat, or if you eat your cat. You go to jail if you eat a dog. You go to jail if you harm somebody's horse. But you don't do as much time if you harm somebody's cow. Right? And there are animals we allow. If somebody ate a goldfish, I'd be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why? Because for some reason we've deemed that pets are pets and farm animals aren't. And I think communication is exactly what that is. My dog can't speak my language, but he can communicate with me very clearly. His feelings, his emotions when something's wrong. I have parrots. They can literally talk to me, but they can also communicate what they need, what they want, what their feelings are. Whereas cows have a much different communication style. Pigs, while being very humanesque, arguably, scientifically, have a much different communication style. But I think the moment that pig could speak to you and say, I'm suffering, or if we had the exact same farm system, but they were full of animals speaking and screaming and talking and communicating with us, I think that is what keeps, if we're being honest with ourselves, that's why people eat some animals and they don't eat other animals, because some animals appeal to our emotions and other animals haven't figured out how to do that yet. Therefore, we eat them.
That's why animal rights activism is important, because you have to be a voice for the ones who are literally voiceless, right? Because animal rights will never change from just cows doing it on their own, right? It has to be by people sort of making those changes.
And I agree with what Sidney's saying here. That's why in India, as I'm sure Nanth can confirm, that there's a lot of people who are very upset about the eating of cows. And like here in America, we're very upset about the eating of dogs in other countries. I don't think there is a moral difference between those things. I don't think that eating, if someone was to eat a dog, I might personally have an emotional attachment because I have a personal attachment to dogs. But I don't have a moral issue with that any more than I have with someone.
We got to wrap this up in the next few minutes. But let me, I want to say my piece on this real quick to that point, Flabbergasted. Because I have a cat in this room right now. Yep. So you would be okay if I cut that cat up.
That's not what I said.
No, that's what you said. You said it's.
I said I would have a personal, emotional feeling about that thing.
You did say
but
that.
from a moral position, I don't think there's a difference.
Yes, but in other words, you would not try to stop me. You wouldn't say, Dan, this isn't a good idea. You would let me do that. You would let me cut up the cat.
I would not be able to make a moral argument for why you shouldn't or can't do that.
And I think that's why your moral position fails. because I think you should be able to say no.
But the thing is, you apply that to every type of animal. I don't apply it to any of the animals.
No, yours is arbitrary because you're just saying, it's humans. Humans are the one thing we have to worry about.
Yours is arbitrary as well.
Game.
Yours is arbitrary as well.
I think you're both arbitrary.
We're all being arbitrary here. We acknowledged that earlier, that there's arbitrary lines we're all drawing here. It's just a matter of where.
Yeah, so I think I tried to demonstrate how I arrived at sentience via some logical deduction. It wasn't, it could be an arbitrary line I'm drawing, but using logical deduction of how, the second the tumor, the cancerous tumor becomes non-sentient, then I'm like, okay, wait, I don't mind that non-sentient tumor being attacked. So I feel like that line, the way I arrived at that line by deducing hypothetical scenarios is what I would normally do. And I just want to get back to the whole idea of actually the Superman hypothetical, because in logic or in philosophy, we call it modality. It's not really a topic we have to talk about. But when you say it's not going to happen in this reality, I agree. But it's still a logical possibility for that to happen. It's a logical possibility for Kryptonians to exist on this planet. So I feel like your views or your values should be consistent throughout modalities. It shouldn't change because you aren't changing who you are as a person. The second you say, well, if Kryptonians arrive on the planet, then I'm going to have to view my values differently, that kind of shows that either it's an inconsistency or you haven't thought it out through completely yet. I would actually implore you to think about that. The topic is called modality or logical modality. If you aren't aware of it, you can check it out.
So my response to that would be, yes, I absolutely have not considered this process extending to intergalactic species to this point. And I have no reason to do so until I have reason to believe the international galactic species actually exist. And that's kind of the thing. Like if we're going to include everything that's a logical possibility, there's so many things that are logical possibilities that we have no reason to think are actual possibilities in reality. And so I think logical possibility is a line of everything we need to consider. Is we're going to be spending all of our time thinking about things that are never going to be realistically considered. And we're going to be wasting all of our time thinking about things that we are never going to actually have a reason to engage with.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I mentioned, I think you should probably look up logical modality, normal logical modality versus, the physical modality that we're currently in. Ethics, our values extend beyond physical modalities. They do cross onto these, as I said, these hypothetical scenarios where, with there intergalactic species involved, because our values don't change. Murder is wrong, irrespective if you're killing a human or if you're killing Superman. That's what we've been taught in movies, in culture, in pop culture, whatnot. So,
well, that's because murder is a legal concept that we've defined as wrong. Murder has to be wrong because we've defined it as wrong. Killing is not always wrong, and that's generally true. If we look at societies, there are situations where we all agree where sometimes killing is acceptable.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I have to cut it right here because we're over time here. We have another caller that we want to get to before the end of the show. So I gotta draw it at some point. Nayant, I want to say thank you so much for calling in. This was great.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Definitely one of my favorite calls in a minute. Gotta tell you, please call in again. Because I think you're going to put, I want you to put every other host that hosts the show on the ropes for me.
Call in again next time when I'm actually hosting and I'm not the backup. We'll do this for a while.
On the ropes because I think you're brilliant.
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Great points today. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I just want to say the argument I use is called name the trait. You can find it on YouTube also. And if you want, you can go look it up. So it'll probably help you think about it in depth as well.
Awesome. Nyan, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, Diane. Take care.
Awesome. Fantastic stuff.
That's like the most
thanks for talking to us.
Yeah.
I think that's the most I've ever seen us combat each other internally. That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah. See,
me and Dan have done this offline before.
Against each other all the time.
And that's when the arm comes out and drags
anyway,
away.
okay, so let's get to it because we got one more, I think at least one more caller on the TikTok, and I want to make sure we have time for them. Then they've been waiting patiently. So let's bring that TikToker on board with us. Is our TikToker here with us today? Hello, maybe so.
Hey, I'm the TikToker.
Oh, the TikToker. Hey, and I have to confirm you are over the age of 18. Is that correct?
Yes, many years ago.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for doing that. It's a TikTok thing. We got to do that for everybody that comes in. Welcome to Talk Heathen. We're getting at the tail end of Talk Heathen here, so sorry you don't have as much time as our previous caller did, but we definitely still want to talk to you. So what did you want to talk to us today about?
Well, I wanted to share an observation, and I just wanted to make sure I was scrolling through, as one does, and you had said something about people not considering you a patriot for several reasons. Can you go over those reasons why people point at you and go, "You're not a patriot"?
I didn't say, I don't know if I said that. Maybe Lee said that. Was that maybe our other caller that said that? Because I don't think you said that either, right, Sidney?
I mean, I feel like there are people that would say that I'm not a patriot.
Sure, that's fair. And people say that for me too. Yeah.
Dan, I thought you said that because you had a different view on healthcare, you had a different view on...
yes. Yes. So I was saying in the hypothetical, you're right. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So I was saying, there's some people that would say that if you have a different idea of socialized medicine, that's not American, right? So I was making that point.
And there was a list of other things that you said.
Yeah, I mean, just leftist ideas in general, right? Yeah, I think some people would say that's un-American. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If anybody ever said that, let's just say I do not hold your views. I'm going to guess we're probably 99% in opposition. However, if I did hold those views, this is the observation I wanted to share. Challenging the status quo and or my government or the way my country works is the absolute most patriotic thing that you can do, which is why we have the First Amendment.
Yes.
So that we can express those different religious or lack thereof, those different ways of running the country, those different ways of things should be. And if anybody ever said, because I had a view of things should be different, said that I was unpatriotic, I would say it's the exact opposite. This isn't Nazi Germany or Stalin Russia, where if I express a view, that view is immediately stuffed down because I'm not in compliance, because I'm not following the crowd. Patriotism is questioning your leaders, your country, the values that are current that you don't agree with, the systems of way things are going. And I would throw that right in their face. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so glad that is maybe the one thing we agree on, because you're absolutely right. And I feel like I've been screaming that into the void.
Yeah. I would say in principle, that should be what it is to be American, right? I would say absolutely 100%. That's how it should be. That is the most
fundamental thing about being an American. That is it. That is the most fundamental thing. And you know what?
Yeah.
The founding fathers knew that, and that's why they provided a way to change any law that there is through a constitutional amendment.
Yeah. I would say in principle, that's how it should be, and that's how this country should act. In practice, has America always done this? No. There's been a numerous examples in American history where this has been the case. We already mentioned one of them, which was during the Red Scare, right? How many actors and Jewish people were being counted as pinkos, right? We're saying, hey, these people, they're coming in with their European ideas. They're not American. They're unpatriotic. We need to kick them out of this country, or sometimes we're arrested for their activism. How many people during the civil rights movement were actively, if not had violence against, were actively jailed because they were speaking out against the injustices that they shaped under their government? These are some small examples, but the list goes on. America likes to pretend that we're the country of free speech and we love it, but how many times has that not been the case from people who have actively protested against their government and what's been going on and what's currently happening today, right? So as much as I want to believe, yes, we are the country of free speech and we love it and it's great. When we talk about free speech cases in history, we talk about the ADL's defense of the Nazis, right? Or saying, hey, these Nazis have a right to say the stuff that they say. And I think about that because it seems that we always tend to prefer certain kinds of speech in this country.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I would suggest to you that America is a very young country, and as a child will stumble and fall occasionally. That the Red Scare and the civil rights, especially the civil rights, jailings and abuses of those people, those were us stumbling and falling. And I think that if you look out now and you see things like the No Kings protest, or you see the Communist Party of America, or you see all these different things, I think that, again, like a new country, like a child that has to stumble and fall and learn, that we are in a process of perfecting our union and perfecting our government. Part of that was getting past those things like the communist Red Scare and the
okay.
Yeah, so
to be fair to you, yes. If you were if we were to make national rankings about which country is the freest in terms of speech, America's not at the bottom half of that list. I don't even think that even close, right? No question. In fact, I would say that they'd be near the top in some respects. But if you were to ask me what that would, if that ranking looked like in the last 50 years, we've gone down. We have not gone up. We have not gotten freer in our speech in recent times. And I think that there's evidence of that. And I think that's why this is such a big deal, because America's kind of known as this country of free speech and known for these ideas and questioning government and stuff. And we haven't been doing a great job of that in the last couple of years. I think that's why it's such a concern. So would I rather be in America than a lot of places on earth? Absolutely. 100%. Any day of the week. But I also want to hold my country to the standard that we claim to have, right? Where we are the best at doing this, because we're not the best at doing this right now. We're just not. And I think that there's evidence of that.
If we were going to have this discussion, here's what I would imagine how it would go, right? You would probably point to things like that student that was on a visa that got deported for writing an op-ed. And then I would say back to you, but yes, that person was in our country on the certain conditions that visa could be revoked due to their free speech. And you would say, that's not fair. That's not America. And I would suggest to you, and I'm not going to have this argument with you because I'm not interested in doing it, but I would suggest to you that these are just yet another thing that we will work through, and we will find a solution one way or another.
And I hope so. I hope so. I'm not even talking about folks who are here on visas. I'm talking about folks who are just straight up American citizens.
Yep.
Not being able to express themselves or being actively, punished for their positions and for the speech that they had. Sidney, you look like you had something you wanted to say.
Nope.
She's just saying, she's nodding her head at this. So yeah, you don't have to make that case for me. And we're at close to the tail end of the show anyway. But I'm hopeful with you in that America's a crazy country and has done some crazy things, and could it turn it around? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But I have an attitude of pessimism in this current political.
Our Constitution is a living, breathing document. Our Constitution is a living, breathing document. It changes. It can be changed. Our laws can be changed. Nothing is set in stone. We will stumble. We will learn. Things will happen.
Yeah, I hope so. I can only hope, so I guess we'll have to see. Was there, like I said, we're at the tail end of today's program. Thanks so much for calling in. Great topic. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we let you go today?
Yes, on veganism.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I believe that most vegans are hypocritical. Because if the goal is to reduce suffering of sentient life or reduce suffering of life, then only going to fruits and vegetables is not going far enough. If vegans truly believed in their principles, they would advocate to returning to a foraging lifestyle, immediately leave their houses, go into the woods, and forage for everything. Only that way, that's the only way you can truly reduce harm to the greatest possible extent to other animals, because farming kills worms and mole rats and mice and all these different animals that die in the course of agriculture.
Okay, so wow, great.
I don't want to argue.
No, I understand, but you made an argument. So let me make an argument back to you. Is your position correct in that is the greatest way to reduce suffering? Yes. But what is veganism? Veganism is to reduce the exploitation of animals as much as is practical and as is possible. So you're right. In farming techniques and practices, farming does reduce the ecological habitats of animals that exist on Earth that use that land for other purposes, right? So it does take that stuff up. But, well, let me finish here. Guess what happens with farmed animals, right? Farmed animals, they need to eat as well, right? They have to eat their own food. In fact, most crops that are grown on Earth right now in this moment are not for human consumption. It is for animal consumption, farmed animal consumption. So we would actually have less farms on Earth right now if everyone was vegan. It's a crazy concept because you think, wait a minute, if everybody's eating plants, wouldn't we need more farms? No, because in order for a cow to get big enough to even be able for slaughter, they have to go through so much material to get there that we're actually offsetting that by if everyone went on a plant-based diet. So would it be better if everybody was foragers? Sure, yeah, but it would also be better if everybody went towards farm produce rather than farmed animals. And that's my case I want to make.
Word practical. You said that word practical, and that's a matter of personal judgment. What's practical to you is to go straight to just agriculturally farmed stuff. What's practical to me is that I only eat animal products that the animal is humanely dispatched. And in that way, I reduce suffering in a way that's practical to me.
And we are getting at the end of the show because that opens up another can of worms of what it means to humanely capture
economic practicality, moral practicality.
Yeah, I understand. But we are at the end though. We're over time because we're supposed to have 4 minutes to go. So let's go ahead and cap it at this point right here. I am interested in talking to you more about this though. If you want to call in at a different time, I love to explore more. For now, we got to cut the show off. But thanks so much for calling in.
Because I think you're two great people, and I don't want to argue. So you said, "Why?"
Well, thank you so much. You're more than welcome to argue with us.
We love arguing.
Absolutely okay. No,
we're both here because we love a good argument.
Yeah, please do. Please
just ask my husband.
But yeah, we'll do it at another time because we are out of time today. So thanks so much for calling in, crew. If you could go ahead. Yep, we're all good. Okay, so real quick before we go, I need to give a special thanks to Sidney for hosting with me today. Thanks so much, Sidney.
Thank you
for being you. And also thanks to Flabbergasted for being our backup host today. Flabbergasted, thanks so much for hosting today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. And I would ask how people can find out more about you, but you know what? They should just come to this show and watch you more, right? Both of these guys are on TikTok. If you want to follow their own accounts, I think it's Sidney Davis Jr. on TikTok for you. And Flabbergasted, yours is
I'm Flabbergasted 001 on TikTok.
There you go. And I don't have my own TikTok account. I should, but I don't. Let's see. Was there any other super chats that I missed? I don't think I missed any. Nope. I think we're all good on there. Let's see. Last things. Love rings. Let's put some love rings out there into the world if we can to show that, hey, thank you to everybody who are watching. You are all very much appreciated for doing so. Folks, this has been another great episode of Talk Heathen. I'd like to remind you that if you don't believe, this is your community, and we appreciate you being here. And if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next week.
We want the truth. So watch Truth Wanted Live, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect online at tiny.cc/call-TW.